we're here today talking about our industry-sponsored student project program, the ISSP. And again, my name there, I'm Trevor Lord, the program head for the CST diploma program. And so we're hoping to share with you today a bit about what the ISSP is, how it fits in with our program, the kinds of projects that we like to look for in that program, and what kinds of opportunities it might present for our clients. So to do that, we'll provide a quick overview of the ISSP, talk about what makes some of the projects successful from our experience, some of the logistics to go through in terms of how and when to apply and the kinds of things that need to be in place, a couple of examples for past projects that we think have been successful, and as I mentioned, a Q&A at the end. So to begin with, what is the ISSP? We need to explain a bit about that. Our industry-sponsored student project practicum program really, as it says, is an experiential education opportunity for students in our full-time programs. So that means that students that are here doing the computer systems technology, the CST diploma in full-time, all of them have to go through 2 cycles in the ISSP. And this is where we collect projects from industry, and we have students form teams, and fundamentally we connect those industry projects with those student teams, and the students work together with those industry clients for the duration of their term, and we'll talk about what those term durations are like in a few minutes. And this isn't us trying to simulate industry projects. We're taking actual projects from industry, actual software development and IT-related projects, and we very much see it as a 3-way partnership between ourselves, you, the clients, and the students. And really, if we think about it like that, and those connections and all of those important components, then that's where it starts to become successful. We like to say that it's low risk and low cost. There is a cost associated with with participating in the ISSP. You'll have more info on that a little bit later, and relatively low risk because unlike hiring people or hiring contractors or even participating in our co-op programs, there's a very low level of commitment, but at the same time, there's a great opportunity to get a bunch of things accomplished as part of the program, and that's what the part about the possible viable computing solutions. We'll talk in a second, like I mentioned before, about the kinds of things that we think make successful projects. But really, our intention is the expectation that we set with the students is that they're going to deliver something of value for their clients. That we want it to be a viable computing solution for the clients. The people are coming here, submitting projects for us to work on because they have some problem that needs to be solved fundamentally, and so that's what we're trying to develop. And I think that the upside for our clients, the goal again is to receive that viable computing solution, but you also potentially get a chance to meet emerging tech talent students that are still in our program, but are coming into the second year of the program. Students do the ISSP when they come into the second year of our 2-year diploma. So these are students who've gone through our intensive first year, are looking towards the finishing part of their program, getting ready towards graduation, and there's a chance for organizations to meet those kinds of students. And again, we do this multiple times a year, so there's multiple opportunities to have projects selected or to work on multiple phases of a project as well. So that's a kind of a high-level intro to the ISSP, and let's dig into a bit more detail. So for the project cycles, mentioned that we do those a couple of times a year. Really what we do is we ask for project proposal submissions from industry clients. And there's a website, a web form that we use for that, which we'll show you in a few minutes. We ask for those project proposals. The form is filled out. We receive those, and around the deadline times, we read through the project proposals for suitability. Really, what we're trying to find there is Is there enough detail for us to understand what the really, even at a high level, what the project is about? Is it going to be something that's going to fit well with our students, or is it something where we need maybe a bit more clarification? So if at this point here, we do that suitability review and find that there might be some additional information required, then we would not put that project into our catalog, but we would get in touch with the client and talk that through. If the project is in good shape in terms of the proposal, then we submit it through into the selection pool, the project catalog that's put in front of the students when they start the project term. We don't, and that's an important point there. We put together the catalog as a pool of projects, and we put that in front of the students, and then we allow the students to select from the catalog. So we don't push projects to student teams. We allow the students to form their own teams, and we allow students to select projects from the pool. So they're projects that will be ideally aligned with what the students are looking for, and that varies from term to term. But it's also something where it helps to increase the motivation of the students, because what we're trying to find is projects that they're going to be interested in working on. So we put the catalog in front of students. They select from that pool. If projects aren't selected, they stay in our catalog for future cycles. If they are selected, then we connect the students with their clients, and we move forward. The students reach out, and they begin the process of project execution. So that's where students meet with their clients. They start to define the scope and requirements. We have a framework that the students are working within in terms of the start and end point of the semesters that they're in. We have milestones, a couple of milestones throughout the term that the students have to meet. But really, within that framework, it's really up to the students and their client to work out practical milestones for the development that they're working on, and then ultimately at the end, the students do delivery of their project to their client. We do an overall assessment. There's always a final formal presentation here on campus, and ideally the project is complete. And it's possible here this next part in the process. If the project is not completed, maybe it's in phases, or maybe there's going to be multiple iterations, or maybe there were some issues that occurred along the way through the project, and the students weren't able to complete as much of the scope as originally intended. Then that project can go forward again into the process, and the cycle can go around one more time. So maybe that seems like a bunch of steps. Really, it's about having a project proposal, and then it gets put into our catalog. Students select, projects are executed, and hopefully projects are completed successfully. So maybe we should talk about what kinds of skills the students have when they start working on these projects. So we collect projects in the ISSP for students who are in our CST diploma program, which is really our programming program. But we're also collecting projects in there for our CIT, the Computer Information Technology diploma program, as well as the Bachelor of Technology program. The students in CST, which is the largest set of those students, have exposure to a number of programming languages that you can see there. So the major programming languages that are listed, web development frameworks like PHP and ASP.NET. They've had exposure to and experience with different varieties of operating systems, including mobile operating systems, some exposure to fundamental database concepts and data modeling, and also some exposure to web deployment architectures. And as you can see there on the right, is kind of an elaboration for the kinds of things that they're able to do, the kinds of things that they've had practice in the first year of their program, given the kinds of technical skills that they're learning in the first year. So fundamentally, our programs, whether it's CST or CIT, are 2-year intensive programs. So they go through quite a bit in their first year. In the Bachelor of Technology, those students have completed the first 2 years in their diploma, and now they're carrying on in their studies. The students that are doing ISSP projects through the Bachelor of Technology, those are individual over the course of a year. So we're really kind of not emphasizing that in this presentation, but we can talk about that in the Q&A as well. So the net of it is students who join, who are in the ISSP, students that are in year 2, from their program have had an intensive exposure to the kinds of things that are listed here. And the thing that they don't have, though, is really a background in how you actually do this kind of work in a real industry setting. And that's really what we're trying to achieve through the ISSP, is to referring back to the very first concept we had on the first slide about the experiential learning component, that students are taking these skills and we're not just wanting to expose them to the students in the abstract and to say, well, these are the kinds of things that you might use in industry that people sometimes use. But now the students can see how those kinds of skills are actually applied in an industry setting to solve real business problems for clients. So with that in mind, our high level about what the program is about, what we're trying to achieve, the process to get in, the kinds of skills that students have, what might make a project suitable, what might give a project the best possible chance of being successful is really what we're trying to say there. As with any project, having a well-defined and achievable set of goals and a scope that's appropriate for the resource constraints that are given is going to be really, really helpful. We always encourage our students and our clients to be ambitious with the scope. You know, that can be motivating. That goes to the second point about it being challenging yet rewarding. You know, we want the scope to be ambitious and motivating. We want there to be a challenge for the students. That's our ideal project. But one that's got clear goals really helps the students have an idea about what they're working towards. And again, you know, that's really no different from the way the projects would be executed if it was done by a group of professional subcontractors or a team within an organization. But the other critical factor to call out there, that third box, is that it's really critical for us that we've got support from a project sponsor. So this is the person who will be connecting directly with the student team. Usually it's the person that will provide the students the description about what the goals and the scope are going to be for the project. It's a person who's meeting with the students on a regular basis, ideally at least once a week, to check in on their progress, to help drive some accountability, clarify the kinds of things that need to be clarified as the project progresses in terms of scope, in terms of requirements. And then that person, or however many contact people there are with the client organization, are always invited to come and join the final formal presentation at the end of the term. But really, we do need somebody, not somebody to work full time with the students, but really somebody who can commit an hour or two a week throughout the course of the term to be available to questions, to meet with the students. It can be virtual meetings as well, to provide them that feedback in that direction. But there again, really, that's similar to industry. Projects are at high risk if there's not somebody that's helping to guide and provide answers to the questions that are inevitably going to come up. So those elements in place, then we'd have a project that would have a pretty good chance of being successful. And so what kinds of areas have we done projects in the past? Well, overall, it's software development projects. Generally, students in CST are working on software development projects. Students in CIT are ideally looking for projects more around IT infrastructure, maybe now some DevOps / continuous integration projects in that area. But fundamentally, so software development, of course, including web development, systems integration. We've been asked to do projects to build pieces that connect existing systems, or to build a system that's going to integrate with another existing system that a client has. We have been asked to do projects around network admin and security, to look at even at the level of data packets. Also trying to manage communications between devices. Oftentimes, more and more and more of our projects are web and/or mobile applications, where a very normal thing for us to be asked to do is to create Android apps. We're often asked to do games. We've done some successful games in the past. Some web-based games, some PC-based games, and some mobile games. We'll look at an example in a minute. And data projects. Increasingly, we're being asked to look at data projects. Often people aren't asking us to create the database per se, although that sometimes happens with the development and the integration projects that we work on. But often now people are looking for analytics layers in some way. So it can be database projects with some web development to put a front end to get insight into a database, or maybe to be able to add data into a database. So really, software development projects, the kind that that are generally being done in industry today. We're asked to do those. Really, what we're asked to do reflects generally what's going on, I think, in industry today. And so let's think a little bit about the logistics. So if we've got in mind what the ISSP is all about, how to get projects submitted, what that process is like, what might make projects successful, what's possible. Let's talk about the timeline. So as I mentioned, we do multiple cycles a year. What's shown here, we have a bit of an interesting structure. It's take just a little bit of explanation. So we do the kind of the more common form of our projects we do twice a year. The next one is coming up in January, and we've got another one in September. And that's a function of the fact that we admit students into our program in both September and in January. So when they come into the second year of their program, sometimes those students are doing that in September, and sometimes they're starting the second year of their program in January. It depends on when they actually came into the program, and some other factors as well. So that's why we have January and September, and that's why it shows 13 weeks, because those are a typical academic term. From January through to April, or from September through to early December. So we're coming into the end point of the ones that we started this past September. That April cycle, what we do, we have a bit of an interesting structure. At the end of the term that's going to start this next January, so at the end of April, all of the students in the program, so whether they started in January or whether they started in September, all of the students are going to come back together for an intensive term where they are only working on industry projects through those 4 weeks. And those always finish up the week of Victoria Day. That's when we do those presentations. So one thing also that differentiates that what's shown there in that middle column, I tried to put these in chronological order. What's shown there in that middle column, students are working on those projects exclusively, 100%, while they're during those 4 weeks. In the January and September terms, students are working on projects as part of their regular full-time course load. So that's why that factors into that time frame of about 400 hours, where if we have a team of 4 students, and that's really our ideal number for a project team is 4 students, we set the expectation with them that they should be setting about 10 hours per week per person on the project work. So that gives you around about 40 hours of time, and spread out over the weeks where they actually get execution. So not counting kind of the first week where we do ramp up and the last week where we're doing presentations. Works out to about 400 hours. And it always tends to kind of follow, I'll draw it this way, kind of follow a curve. in terms of commitment, or not commitment, rather, in terms of the amount of time the students are spending on projects, and that might be normal as well. So the bottom line here to call out, we've got the longer duration projects, the 13-week cycle, as it shows there, starting in January when courses start, and our submission deadline to submit project proposals for that is the 15th of December. So we are collecting projects now. We've got a number in our catalog for January, but we always welcome more, and clients have up until December 15th to submit those. And the commitment fee that's shown on here, I mentioned at the top of our meeting that there is a cost involved. We like to say that and think of our ISSP program as being low risk and low cost. Low risk in terms of the fact that these students are they're not being paid. They're not paid by the client. They're not paid by BCIT. They're doing this as part of their coursework. They don't need to have an employment contract. There's no commitments that need to be made to the students beyond the end of the project. They do their work here using BCIT resources. Really, companies just need to be able to commit that client sponsor that I talked about before. And the low cost is for all of that, for all of the execution that the students are able to get through. We charge a $500 commitment fee. So that's assessed for the projects that are selected. So what that means is that there's no fee when you submit a project. That's absolutely free, and we only assess that fee once projects are selected and the students are working on them, plus tax. That fee doesn't come to me. It doesn't come to my colleagues. It goes back into BCIT. So we're not making commission. Nobody's getting paid off of this. So having said all of the things I've said so far to set up the structure and talk about what makes it successful, what can be expected, I think it is also important to mention these caveats and things to keep in mind if you're considering doing this or at the beginning of a project to have the right kinds of expectations. It's something that I touched on before is this learning curve element. The students are students, and they are in the middle of their program, and so they are very much on a learning curve, and so that has its advantages and its disadvantages. So there's some things for that might be commonplace for working industry professionals that's going to be new for the students, and it's going to take them time to ramp up on those things. The students are not the professional services team. There's things that need to be things that will need to be explained to them. We provide a lot of support for the students and try and be explicit with them about what they can expect and how to do this kind of work. But there is that learning curve. And it's also to be expected that there's going to be a ramp up on new technologies. I mentioned before all of those, the programming languages and the other technical topics that the students are exposed to. But the thing that we're trying to teach them explicitly through this program is how you apply those in a real-world situation. And often there's so how you do that and other technologies that the students might need to know to be able to bring those solutions in. There's usually a learning curve involved. The good news there is that the students are really in a mode about learning new technologies, and often they select projects because they'll include technologies that they want to learn about. But so I think that's important to keep in mind, right? That this isn't a low-cost professional services engagement. They're students. We want them to provide an outcome of value for their clients, but there is going to be some learning. So with that in mind, we also call out the fact that projects where there's a high degree of time sensitivity, really important deadlines, after which point the value of the project will drop off, or things that are mission critical, things that people might want to have an expectation that it'll be saleable at the end of the project. There's a very high degree of risk involved there, and I've got another comment in a second. Really, that another way to think about that, and I'll reinforce this in a minute. Like I said, is an ideal kind of a project would be one where we're generating a prototype or a proof of concept, not things that are going to become where the expectation is that it's going to be mission critical, or again a really tight deadline. And one thing that people are asking us about more and more is around the non-disclosure agreements and intellectual property ownership. To make this as succinct as possible, we don't have contracts in place when we start working on projects. So our default is that there's no contract in place. And if you recall the cycle, I didn't mention anything about that. Our proposals are submitted into our catalog. We do that review. Students are connected and they start working. So fundamentally, we proceed on a good faith basis. And what that means is that BCIT policy and the law would say that the students own the intellectual property that they create through the process of the project. Now, where that's an issue, where the client really wants to ensure that they own the intellectual property, or that there's a formal mechanism in place to ensure that the students aren't disclosing confidential or proprietary information, BCIT has a standard form that we really prefer to use. And I can provide a copy of that contract so people can review the language where that might be required. We have a standard form that we can put in place that assigns IP ownership to the client and also formalizes the non-disclosure terms and conditions. So our default, no contract, but if we need to have a contract in place to clarify NDA and IP, we can absolutely do that using the BCIT standard form. And again, to reinforce what I said before, this is a three-way partnership: students, clients, and us at BCIT trying to make this successful. And just like a regular team, even if it was a paid professional services team, they're going to work the best where they've got a clear direction, clear goals that they're working to try and achieve, and accountability. And we try and drive that accountability. And it's also very helpful when the clients are helping to drive that accountability, having clear goals and expectations for the students for them to meet. And oftentimes, that can actually work even better than the kind of accountability we try and drive. Students being students don't always listen to their instructors, but their industry clients carry a lot of weight. And so where those clients can set clear and ambitious targets for the students to meet, that can really help drive progress forward. Okay, so a couple of examples here before we get into the Q&A. And I'm reminded that I should also mention, in terms of that accountability, just as we start talking about the examples here, every student team is attached to a faculty supervisor. So that's one of my colleagues here in CST or in CIT. Every student team is attached to a faculty supervisor. So that person does not get involved in the management or the execution of the project. Really, they're there to provide some guidance, and that can be guidance on technical issues for the students. It could be guidance on project management, could be guidance on intra-team issues. So they're not getting hands-on with the execution of the project, but they are providing that kind of support, and they also do marking. So there's students aren't completely flying without a net from our side, and then the course instructor, really the person who oversees the program, which has been me, is there as well to support the students, support their supervisors, and also to support the clients. So having mentioned that, let's consider these examples. So the kinds of things that we've done, and I've touched on before, the sorts of projects that we've been asked to do. Revamping a website is really normal. We're completing a project right now, for example, where we're doing a new website for a client in WordPress. We've also been asked to do websites, creating them from scratch, adding in functionality. Lots of website projects. porting games to mobile, creating mobile games on either of those platforms. Most of what we're asked to do is on Android, but we've been asked to do both. Talked about database examples before, data migrations, implementing new databases. Talked about the analytics dashboard before. Sooner or later, if an organization has data collected, they want to be able to drive reports on it. We've been asked to do that. Usually what we can do is to provide a web layer on top with that allows some analytics capabilities rather than implementing or integrating third-party tools like Tableau, for example. And we've been asked to try and create custom WordPress plugins. We've had projects, the way that I like to describe it too, we've had projects where students have worked to create a programming language in close collaboration with their client. They created a programming language, plus then in a subsequent term, the IDE for that programming language, all the way to WordPress websites, and so and those kinds of bookends for complexity and everything in between. And we've worked for really large, mature, complex organizations, and we work with small, independent entrepreneurs and everything in between. So a wide variety of projects, as you can see here, and a wide breadth in terms of the kinds of challenges that we're asked to do, and a lot of depth in terms of the kinds of organizations that we work with. So if you might be thinking, well, do you only work with certain kinds of companies? We've worked with a number of different companies on all sorts of different kinds of projects. So to try and summarize what we've been talking through in these last few minutes, that three-way partnership again with BCIT, the students, and our clients, to provide that experiential learning for the students so that they can put that software development in the software development skills in context. And that's one of the things that we think really helps to add value for our graduates when they come out, that the people who are looking to hire our graduates know that they're job ready, that they haven't just learned the technical skills that they've learned at a theoretical level, that they've actually learned how you also apply those and what that looks like in industry. And so that's valuable for our graduates as well as the people that might be employing our graduates. As I mentioned before, the kinds of projects that I would think could be really successful are ones where there's a proof of concept or a prototype. Maybe those kinds of things where the business case isn't super strong for an organization to commit its own resources for those kinds of projects. But if there was a student team that could come on board, again, in that low risk, relatively low cost kind of a way, maybe the students would be able to create that proof of concept or add some functionality for an organization that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get around to. Again, we do 3 cycles a year. January, next April, and then the following September. Teams of 4, usually. There can be some variance, but usually it's 4. That 400 hours and the $500 that I mentioned before, 400 hours over the term, $500 for all the projects, each project that's selected. And our next submission deadline is December 15th, so coming up in just a couple of weeks. Really, the submission is as simple as just following that link to our project submission form and completing the details there. I've got my contact details on the page here, and I'm happy to answer questions about how to maybe to edit a project proposal. And really, if you don't want to copy that URL down, I just advise people to Google BCIT ISSP, and you'll get in the search results, you get the link for our project submission form, which that is. And so now I think it's now should be the time for some Q&A. And while we do that, I'll have our contact information up here, and I will go back and see if I can unmute everybody's lines. So just one moment, please. Okay. So now the audio line should be open. If there's any questions, we'd be happy to try and field those.
Trevor. It's Alex. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah. Sorry, I had a little bit of an audio issue for a second there, so I think there might have been a question I didn't catch, but I can hear you now.
Okay. I'm wondering, is it possible that a company submit more than one project at a time, and is there a chance that 2 or 3 teams can work at the same time for the company?
Yes and yes. So we've had companies submit multiple projects in the past, and we've had multiple projects selected at the same time for those companies. So we don't see an issue with that. I think the only challenge with that is really the client side in terms of whether the client organization has the bandwidth to provide that project sponsorship that I mentioned. If a client submits 3 projects and all 3 are selected, does the client have the bandwidth to be able to provide support for all 3 of those projects concurrently? Okay. But fundamentally, yeah, we can do it.
Okay, good. And the relation between the company and students, how does it work? Are they coming to our office? Are they going to run it through the BCIT classes? Are we going to get the chance to meet these students and get a feedback or talk to them or lead them?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, the students work here at BCIT. So there's no requirement to, and there's no expectation that they'll co-locate. Once the project selections are done, and we know which projects the students are going to be working on, we give the student client contact information, and we ask the students to reach out to their clients as soon as possible. And we always advise them to meet with their clients face-to-face. At the very least, to meet them face-to-face in the first time, and then to have a regular cadence of meetings at least once a week after that. And we always try and encourage the students to meet the clients face-to-face, but sometimes with logistics on either side, it's not going to work, so virtual meetings are okay. So there should be a quick initial meeting and then a consistent connection throughout the whole course of the project, and then we always invite clients here on campus for the final presentation at the end of the term.
And is it going to be one student per project? Is it going to be a team of a student for one project?
A team of 4.
Team of 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. I don't know if are you able to hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I guess my question, Trevor, is what kind of technical knowledge is expected of the company that is part of the partnership?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually, the way that I would put it is that we don't expect any technical knowledge on the part of the client organization, and because that's real world as well. That the students can expect that they're going to end up working with people who don't have the depth of technical knowledge that they do. Some will, but some won't. The students always like it when they get a chance to work with people that have deep technical knowledge because they can answer questions for them. But really, what I think makes a big difference, whether the client has technical knowledge or not, is those clear business goals. And I think in some cases where the clients don't have that deep technical knowledge and they focus very clearly on what the business goals are, that can actually help make a project even more successful because it's kind of, the students have a really clear target to work towards. Kind of forcing them to make sure that they're doing the heavy lifting on the technology rather than every time they run into a roadblock, they might escalate that to their client. So that's kind of a bit of a roundabout way of saying we don't expect really any technical knowledge. What our prerequisite is that those clear business goals for the students, and then the students can fill in the rest with the support from us as well.
Okay, sounds good.
But if there's a technical resource for the client organization, then that's great too.
Okay.
Yeah. Who had the next question?
Trevor, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I missed the first part of the presentation, so I sent you a couple of questions on chat that I think you probably covered. But maybe not this question. Maybe other people might be interested in this question as well. have you had students come into a project that's ongoing, or I guess a technology sort of environment, a blend of web and mobile apps that are already partially developed, and then they kind of take it to another stage, or they work alongside of some technical expertise within the nonprofit?
Yes. So yes, the short answer is yes. We've done that. The longer answer is as it would be even if you hired professional consultants to come into a project where there's an existing code and some stuff that's already stuff that's already happening. Mm-hmm. The students are going to want to have some information, as much documentation as they can about what's existing, and some expectations set about the parameters that they have to work within. Mm-hmm. How they're going to integrate what they do with what's already existing, who they need to work with, if there's quality goals that need to be met, all those kinds of things. So that can make the picture a little bit more complex. But again, personally, I really like projects that are kind of like that, where there's an existing code base, because that's actually one thing that the students don't kind of practice doing here. Usually they're creating things from scratch. So I think that's really nice. One risk would be one thing that I touched on that you might not have been in the presentation for was around some of the caveats, thinking about projects that are time sensitive or mission critical. So if there would be a really strong dependency on the work that the students would be doing, and an expectation that they would do an important component that might go into a system that's going to be a production system, or if there's a very strict deadline, I think there'd be some risk there. But fundamentally, yes, we've done many projects where the students come in and work on an existing code base, an existing structure.
Okay.
So some great questions for clarification. We're coming up to the time that was scheduled, and maybe I can. What I can do here is, if there's other questions, I'd be happy to hear those. We've got the contact info here that's been shown, but I can also carry on to some other info here, and I'll have a look at the questions in the chat in a second. If you'd like some further information, there's a couple of things to do. On the left-hand side there, that's the homepage for the School of Computing and Academic Studies. That's where that's the component that the computing department is part of. So that's our website. There's our URL at the bottom. And what I wanted to mention there, this little blue button down here in the bottom of my screenshot, if you go to our website and you click that link, you can sign up for our newsletter. So that's not specific to the ISSP, but that's something where we provide information about what's going on here, and also some information about what we know about what's going on in industry. And this screenshot here on the right-hand side, this is the ISSP homepage. So if you Google BCIT ISSP, or you follow that URL, you'll come here, and the link to the project submission form there, as well as an FAQ that explains many of the kinds of things that we talked through in the webinar today. Are there any other questions? Maybe something that somebody's put into the chat that I didn't get a chance to see?
Yeah, Trevor.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I know you say you guys allot about $400 hours per term, I guess it is. So if we have maybe a project that we realistically see might be 100 hours or less, is that still something viable for this program, or would we look at something larger than that?
Yeah, I would want to have a conversation with a client about that, because I would say a risk in a project of 100 hours. The risk for me is I imagine the students coming at the end of their term to that final formal presentation, and they present their solution, which might be 100% complete. And then we'd say, is that it? So that's a high risk for the students. So trying to head that off right at the beginning, I'd want to have a conversation with that client and see if there was something that we could that we could figure out to basically to elaborate that project. If there's anything else that we could do.
Okay. So,
yeah.
And then I guess the follow-on is, what if it's a project that might have several phases, and then let's say each phase is, let's just estimate, or for example, 50 to 100 hours for phase 1, and then, you know, similar for phase 2 and 3 kind of deal. So, I mean, that gets closer to your 400 hours.
Yeah.
Something like that more realistic then?
Well, so I put my old business analyst hat on, and I start to think, well, maybe phase 1 could be done within the first few weeks of the project by the students, and phase 2 could be in the second month or the second month and a half of the project. There might be a way to phase it like that. So then it would be, from our perspective, it would be one term, but maybe multiple phases could take place throughout that one term if there didn't have to be a bunch of time elapsed between the phases. That might be a possibility.
Okay. That sounds good.
Trevor, it's Ali again. Quick question. If a same project can be divided between two different teams, should I submit 2 applications, or one application could be enough for applying for 2 teams?
So it would be one project, but you would want 2 teams working on different versions of that same project, kind of
on different
competitively
milestones.
almost?
No, 2 different milestones.
Okay, then I think that those should be submitted as two separate pieces. That would make it a lot easier and a lot more explicit administratively on our side, and we could make sure that we would reduce the chance of getting something wrong in terms of how many students we would try and connect to that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so we're a little bit over our time here. We've got the contact info that we've set up on here, and also our websites for further information. Maybe see if there's one more question, and then we'll look to wrap it up for today. Who's got the last question? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll say thank you very much for everybody for your interest in the ISSP program, and for joining our session today. If you do have any further questions, you've got our email details here. There's the email addresses that were also included in the invitation and the reminder emails. There's our websites there, and we would very much look forward to working with you down the road. Thanks very much, and I hope you have a good day.
Thank you very much.